He thought it was just another walk in the woods, until his dog stopped and let out a desperate cry. Following the sound, the man uncovered a scene that froze his blood, a dying baby hidden in the grass. What happened next would change his life forever. For Daniel, it was just another walk, an ordinary escape from the noise of the town. His loyal German shepherd, Rex, padded happily beside him, nose twitching at every scent. The man breathed deeply, feeling the crisp air fill his lungs. These walks were his favorite part of the day, a chance to clear his mind and enjoy the quiet company of his dog. Nothing ever happened out here. At least, nothing worth remembering. But then, the peace shattered. Rex stopped suddenly, his ears pricking, body stiffening in alarm. A low whine escaped his throat, sharp and urgent. Daniel frowned, puzzled. "What is it, boy?" he asked, but the shepherd didn't budge. His gaze locked on a dense thicket ahead, his tail rigid, his cries growing louder. Something was wrong. Deep down, Daniel felt it too. The kind of wrong that made your heartbeat quicken before you even knew why. Rex's whine grew sharper, almost frantic, as he pawed at the ground. Then he turned his head toward Daniel, his amber eyes wide with urgency. It wasn't the playful bark Daniel knew so well. This was different, desperate. The dog yanked at the leash, pulling hard toward the dense undergrowth. Daniel hesitated. The thicket ahead was thick, tangled, and uninviting. Nothing good ever came from following strange sounds in the woods. But Rex wouldn't let go. His body strained forward, muscles tight, a guttural cry breaking from his chest as if begging Daniel to understand. Finally, Daniel gave in. "All right, boy, show me," he muttered, pushing through the branches. Leaves scratched at his arms as he stumbled deeper, following the dog's urgent pull. His heartbeat quickened, each step heavier than the last. Then, beneath the rustle of leaves and Rex's low growls, Daniel heard it, another sound. Faint, fragile, almost impossible to believe. A whimper. It wasn't an animal. It was something else, something that froze him in his tracks. Daniel pushed aside the last of the branches, his breath catching in his throat. There, nestled in the grass and half hidden beneath a thin blanket, lay a baby. Tiny, fragile, its skin pale and lips trembling with the shallow rhythm of fading breath. For a moment, Daniel couldn't move. Rex circled the small bundle, whining softly, his nose nudging the edge of the blanket as though urging Daniel to act. The dog's cries had led him here, for this. The baby let out a weak whimper, no louder than a whisper, but it was enough to pierce Daniel's chest like a blade. He dropped to his knees, his hands shaking as he touched the child. Cold. Too cold. His heart pounded as panic rose inside him. "Dear God," he whispered. How long had the baby been here? Who could have left a child alone in the woods to die? The forest was silent again, but for Daniel, everything had changed. Rex had found more than a secret. He had uncovered a life hanging by the thinnest of threads. That Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears as he scooped the fragile baby into his arms. The child was frighteningly light, as though life itself was slipping away with each shallow breath. Panic gripped him, but there was no time to think, only to act. "Hold on, little one," he muttered, his voice breaking as he clutched the baby close to his chest. Rex barked sharply, spinning in circles before sprinting down the path, pausing only to glance back, urging Daniel to follow. His paws pounded the earth like a drumbeat of urgency. Branches tore at Daniel's sleeves as he ran, his legs burning, his chest aching, but he didn't dare stop. Every second mattered. He stumbled once, nearly falling, but tightened his grip on the child and forced himself forward. The baby whimpered weakly, a sound so faint it tore Daniel's heart into. The forest that had once seemed peaceful now felt like a cruel maze. But with Rex leading the way, Daniel pushed harder, praying that help was not too far away, that he wasn't already too late. The sliding doors burst open as Daniel rushed into the emergency ward, the baby cradled desperately against his chest. Nurses gasped at the sight, and within seconds, a team of doctors surged forward, their voices sharp with urgency. "Get him to pediatrics, now," one ordered as they wheeled a tiny gurney into place. Daniel froze as they lifted the infant from his arms. For a moment, the child's hand brushed against his finger, so small, so fragile, and then the baby was gone, swallowed by a flurry of white coats and rushing footsteps. His chest heaved, every breath ragged, his arms aching from the emptiness. Rex, pressed close to his side, his warm body grounding Daniel as he stumbled into the waiting area. The German shepherd's eyes seemed to mirror his own fear, wide and restless, searching for answers that weren't there. Minutes stretched into hours, every tick of the clock louder than the last. Daniel's hands shook as he gripped Rex's fur. He had found the child, but would that be enough? Or had fate led him here only to watch hope slip away? Daniel's head shot up when the sound of firm footsteps echoed across the waiting room. Two police officers entered, their expressions grim, followed closely by a doctor who carried the weight of exhaustion in his eyes. Daniel stood quickly, his heart hammering. "The baby's alive," the doctor said, his tone steady but heavy. Relief surged through Daniel, his knees nearly buckling. But the doctor's next words froze him in place. He was abandoned. Left to die? If you hadn't brought him when you did, he wouldn't have made it. Daniel's throat tightened. He glanced down at Rex, who sat watchful at his side, as if he had known all along what was at stake. The officers stepped closer, speaking quietly. "We'll investigate who left the child. But tonight, that baby is alive because of you and your dog." The words cut through Daniel like fire and ice. Alive, saved, but abandoned. How could anyone leave something so innocent, so helpless, alone in the woods? As he sank into the chair, one truth became clear. Fate had placed him in that forest for a reason. Days passed, and the baby's fragile cries grew stronger, no longer whispers of fading life, but proof of survival. Daniel visited often, each time finding himself drawn closer to the small bundle wrapped in hospital blankets. He would stand by the crib, watching the baby's chest rise and fall, feeling an unfamiliar warmth stirring inside him. Rex became a constant presence at his side, waiting patiently in the hospital corridors. Nurses often bent down to scratch behind his ears, whispering, "Good boy, you saved a life." The shepherd accepted their praise quietly, his amber eyes always drifting back toward the room where the baby rested. One evening, a social worker approached Daniel. "The child has no family," she said gently. The words struck him harder than he expected. He looked through the glass window at the baby, so small, so vulnerable, and something inside him shifted. That night, Daniel made a choice. He wouldn't just walk away. This child, once abandoned, would never be alone again, not while he and Rex still drew breath. Daniel carried the baby carefully in his arms, Rex trotting faithfully beside him. The once fragile child now stirred softly, eyes fluttering open, greeted not by loneliness, but by a family he never expected. Nights were no longer silent. They echoed with the baby's cries, met with gentle rocking and whispered promises. Rex stood guard by the crib, his protective gaze never faltering. Each bark at the door, each paw against the floorboards, seemed to vow that no harm would ever reach this child again. Daniel often sat in the quiet hours, the baby nestled against his chest, Rex resting at his feet. He would think back to that cry in the forest, the sound that had changed everything. What began as an ordinary walk had turned into destiny. A baby saved, a family formed, and a man forever reminded that sometimes the smallest cries lead to the greatest miracles.